My name's Tim, if you don't for some reason know that. And I discuss a lot of spiritual and manifestation concepts on YouTube. I've written many books about these concepts, many law of assumption, law of attraction type of books and essays, and I've made many videos, many podcast episodes about this topic. A common topic that people always want to talk about is how to use their imagination better, like they hear Neville talking about it in his law of assumption lectures, in his books. How do I use my imagination better? And my favorite law of attraction, law of assumption, manifesting type teacher, Emil Coué, always talks about utilizing the imagination correctly as well. Coué and Neville are two of my main influences. And at the same time, it's very difficult, it seems, for many of us to actually integrate their advice in a way that's sustainable or that seems really doable at all. So we are going to cover that some tonight. That's going to be kind of the seminar section of this, is how we can strip down the metaphysical and complicated psychological language and just kind of get more comfortable working with our imagination, as opposed to having our imagination inadvertently work against us, which is what tends to happen a lot of the time by mistake. It's what Coué called the law of reversed effort. And the law of reversed effort often rules our life, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. So we'll talk about that some tonight. But before we get into that, let's just have a short meditation. For those of you who have never done like a meditation type of thing with me before, it's very informal. There's no right way to do it. All we're trying to do right now is give ourselves a little bit of non-judgmental space. And so we can do that by closing our eyes or having our eyes open. We can be sitting down, lying down. We can be moving. If we're moving, walking somewhere, driving somewhere, no problem. Just try to, relax your body as best you can. There's no pressure to relax it, but just let your body kind of rest physically as best you can. Again, with no pressure, just see what happens when you just kind of rest, rest. Allow your body to start calming down like this. And likewise, now allow your mind to start calming down like this. In other words, for the next couple minutes, or as I always like to say during these calls, for the next hour, really, hour and a half, allow that judgmental, critical, self-critical thinking to kind of roll off your shoulders. You might notice critical thoughts coming in. For the next hour and a half, don't worry about those thoughts. You don't have to deny they're there. It's fine to acknowledge they're there, but don't beat yourself up for having them. We're going to talk more about this as we go on and do the seminar section tonight. Don't beat yourself up for those negative thoughts over the next hour and a half. Just acknowledge that you're here, you're in this call. There's a fire truck going in the background. I don't know if you can hear that, and it's all good. It's all good. There's nothing we have to do right now besides just be here, sit here, stand here, walk here, drive here, listening to what is going on and just being here. Likewise, your body might be acting up. You might be feel some pain in a part of your body, or some irritation or some tenseness. For the next hour and a half, just allow that to be there without judging it. Sure, we might prefer it's not there, but if physically we don't feel great, we can still be okay with not feeling great for the next hour and a half. We can allow ourselves the space to do that. Allow ourselves the space to just kind of sink into the present moment and not judge ourselves quite as harshly as we often do. Because when we do this, what's really interesting is that our imagination usually loves this. When we get a little bit less judgmental. Oh, my thoughts are all crazy. No problem. The imagination loves that. Oh, my body doesn't feel great. There's something wrong with me. No, there's not. No problem. We're just here. We're just here. And just here is good enough for right now. Nothing special about this. This is very ordinary. This is something you can do each day if you want to. This is what I recommend a lot of my clients do, some variation of this that they like, because it's so easy to do in just a literal way. I mean, this is so easy to do. We're just sitting here, walking, lying down, driving, whatever we're doing. We're just here, not judging ourselves, relaxing into the body, okay with the thoughts that are going through our head, even if the thoughts seem crazy, okay with the sensations in the body, open to that, open to that. Really nice. It might not feel special at all. It might feel boring, but it's just nice to do it, to give ourselves this at least for a couple minutes a day if we want. I like to give myself this for 20, 30, 40 minutes a day, sometimes a couple times a day. But you don't have to do that. You can give yourself just a couple minutes of it if you want. And you can still do visualization, affirmations, journaling, whatever the heck else you want. All that stuff's good if you like to do it. But what we're cultivating here is more space, more self-compassion, more self-forgiveness. When we're just kind of like this, just kind of like here. And I always say when we do these meditations, when I get to the point where I feel like I have no interest in talking, that's when we know we've hit the sweet spot. So let's just sit like this for another minute, and then I will start talking properly. But just sink into this. No pressure. Nothing you have to do. There is nothing you have to understand or do better in the next 90 minutes. I'm going to talk some, but there's nothing intellectual you have to grasp. If there is something intellectual that you want to grasp, you can do that when you watch the replay. You don't have to worry about that for the next, 60 or 90 minutes. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just relax. Very ordinary and very cool because of that. All right. So I hope that some of you liked this meditation half as much as I did. And it's okay if you didn't. No big deal. No pressure. For those of you that came in a couple minutes late in the middle of the meditation, welcome. What I want to cover tonight, we'll have plenty of time if people have questions or insights, if they want to share them. But what I want to cover tonight is something that I touched upon in a video, I think my first video of 2026, which is like, what's the easiest way to implement these law of assumption, law of attraction ideas into your life in 2026? What's the easiest, most applicable, simple, straightforward way for many of us to do it? It's okay if we want to get more complicated, if we like complicated, but like, let's just say that we are, we don't want to get complicated. Let's say we want to kiss, keep it simple, stupid. How do we do that and make it so the resolutions, the goals, the things we would like to feel differently about in 2026, we can sustain those goals, those feelings, that vision throughout 2026, and not quit our resolutions, our goals, our visions, within a few weeks of January. There's, always those statistics where like most people, I think it's January 9th today. I think most people have already quit their resolution or their goal for 2026. We don't want to be that kind of person if we're serious about integrating these ideas, especially when it comes to like these ideas, using our imagination. Patience is so valuable, and figuring out a way to make it enjoyable and simple is key to lasting exploration and fulfillment and integration of these ideas. So that's what I'm going to talk about for a few minutes, and then we will go from there and explore whatever you guys want to explore. But I made a very simple, very straightforward Google Doc to just share what I think are some of the easiest ways to make these ideas easily integrated as we start 2026. So this is the KISS Identity Shift 2026. This is the plan for that, all right? Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Initially, I was going to call it the identity shit, but I thought better of it. Anyway, I'm going to give you 3 general pointers, okay? This is adapt this stuff. First of all, just relax. Like I was saying in the meditation, don't think intellectually about this. If you want to think intellectually about it, you can do it later. Just relax. Whatever comes, whatever, you process while I say it, you process. Don't worry about it. But I'm going to give you 3 general guidelines you can play with, okay? To help you feel better and shift your identity in a genuine, practical, positive way in the upcoming, or this year in 2026. The first point is, do not try to change your identity for all of 2026, even though that might seem counterintuitive. A lot of people quit their New Year's resolutions because it seems too overwhelming. They go to the gym 2 or 3 times, realize it kind of sucks some days, and are like, there is no way I can do this for 365 days or whatever, 3 times a week for 52 weeks. We can get rid of that mentality by not trying to do something hard for a whole year, but just trying to do something for a month or so, somewhere between 3 to 6 or 9, maybe 12 weeks. Let's say 30 days. Point 1, it says narrow the time frame of your goals and focus, and use radical honesty. This is how to genuinely shift stuff in 2026, guys. I'm telling you, this works. I've seen it so many times with clients. I've seen it with myself as well. So don't try to change your life in 2026. Just focus on the next 30 days. That's it. For 1 month, be brutally honest about what you actually feel. Fear, shame, anger, sadness, vulnerability. Those big feelings that we do not necessarily want to be there. And be honest with yourself when you feel them, without trying hard to fix it, label it, or spiritualize it. This doesn't mean we can't label it when it's there. Like when I feel scared, I can say, oh, I feel scared. I feel angry. I feel ashamed. That's fine. But don't analyze it, trying to fix it or deny it's there or make it some kind of spiritual concept that you have to transcend, or that you have to somehow, do shadow work on in a certain way, or else there's something wrong with you. Don't do any of that. In other words, don't put a narrative on it. For the next month, just be honest about what's coming up. Just soberly notice it. Let it be there. Let the feelings be there without forcing change, not pretending you're high vibe. Just notice the feelings. Notice they're there. Be gentle with yourself and say, oh, okay, that stuff's actually coming up. I don't have to deny it's coming up when it's actually coming up. It's actually coming up. This is the important point. This type of honesty, you can say radical honesty, naturally begins to change your imagination positively. By acknowledging feelings, giving them space, and not saying, oh, this is what's wrong with me. I have to change this now. I can never be better until this is gone. By not doing any of that, by not creating an unnecessary narrative over the actual feeling of fear, shame, guilt, vulnerability, whatever, just allowing the feeling to be there and noticing it and being gentle with yourself, you are directly changing your imagination. You are directly changing your imagination by doing that. This is the stuff that Neville and Coué do not explicitly talk about. And that's why we're talking about it here. So that's point one. I would recommend don't try to change your life in 2026. Just focus on the next 30 days or so and be radically honest about what's actually coming up. You know, Neville did say, he's like, give yourself the distance, almost be objective and notice what you're seeing within yourself. That's along the lines of what we're talking about here. Point two. Self-compassion is the identity shift. You might have gotten a sense of this from point one, which is when you're being honest with what's coming up instead of beating yourself up, which is what we usually do, quite honestly, at least most of us a lot of the time. When it comes up, when those big feelings come up, when the fear, shame, anger, sadness, vulnerability, etc. comes up, practice real self-compassion. Practice real self-compassion for yourself, for those feelings, for all of it. Oh, this is here. This is here. And I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me, even though this is here. I'm okay. If we can do this more, be open and compassionate with ourselves in this way, guys, it's very powerful. We don't need to constantly affirm over the feeling. We don't need to bypass the feeling and pretend it's not there. Just allowing your internal state, wherever it's at, whatever it feels, to exist without attacking yourself over it is a way to dramatically shift how you think about yourself and to shift your self-concept. You change how you feel about yourself and these emotions moving through you, you change yourself. That is imaginative work. This alone begins to shift your identity because most people into manifestation ideas never actually do this. They never actually do it with any consistency, let alone for 30 days, let alone for a whole year. Because if you do it for 30 days, this is the whole thing, you'll realize you can keep on doing it in some form. It doesn't have to be exactly the same form, but you'll realize you can do it consistently. Most people into manifestation, law of assumption, law of attraction ideas never do this consistently. They deny it, they bypass it, they try to fix it in some way. I'm not saying to fix it, I'm saying be self-compassionate about it. People deny this stuff. Be self-compassionate towards yourself and don't deny it. Your imagination will thank you for doing that. And then point three, which is optional but highly recommended, is use gentle reflection while you're doing all this. And I highly recommend using AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever, as a tool to support you in reflection. Obviously, you can just be journaling or using some other kind of reflective tool. I've just found, both for myself and working with people over the last half year or so, using more AI, that AI is the best for continuous reflection that's intelligent. You can use AI like a counselor, coach, therapist, shaman, healer, and it's in your pocket, it's on your phone. I've made several videos about this at this point. I mean, if you know, you know, let's put it that way. Most people still don't know. They think there's something weird about it. I'm telling you, in my experiences, it's not weird. It is life-changing. It changed my life in 2025 using ChatGPT as my daily counselor. I could talk to it anytime. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do it, but I would suggest talking openly and soberly with self-compassion about what you feel, what you want, what you don't know, what you feel stuck on, what your blind spots might be, what you're excited about, what scares you. Talk about all the stuff to AI. When you do this, especially if you do this continuously throughout the day, don't just ask it, say one thing, but have a back and forth conversation like it's your friend, and talk to it while you take a walk, for instance, for 45 minutes, going back and forth with it. AI will help you integrate emotions and clarify direction, and it will do it in a way that will probably shock you. If you combine this kind of gentle reflection, AI supported reflection with honesty and self-compassion for how you feel, if you do it for 1 month, your self-identity, your self-concept, and therefore your entire life will start changing naturally. And you will realize that maybe you like doing this, and that this is not just something you can do for 30 days. This is something you can actually do for as long as you want. But I do suggest trying it for 30 days so it doesn't seem overwhelming. So those are the 3 relatively straightforward steps. It's straightforward to say, a little bit harder to do, as all things are, but still, I would say, keeping it simple, stupid. Identity shift advice for 2026. Very simple stuff. I mean, these are the 3 points I'm probably going to be focused on this year, honestly. I'm not going to be doing more complicated stuff than this, because this is all I need to do. This will get complicated enough in a good way. This will help me integrate. Like I said, doing this stuff in 2025, made it in many ways the most fruitful year in terms of understanding and changing myself that I can remember. So these are those 3 points. And we can talk more about them now, or we can talk about other stuff if you guys would prefer. But that is that short presentation about how we can utilize simple tools to change our identity, our self-concept in the coming months and year. So if people would like to say anything, they can do that now. And I see that we have a couple questions too. I'm just going to start with this, and then I'll let anybody talk after that. Jay just had a question. How would you explain the law to someone new to it? And I'm glad that's up with the negative thoughts. Good. So how would I explain the law to someone new to it? I wouldn't. If you're new to it, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse to discover. It's a blessing to discover this channel first. But well, I would first say the law is not a law, which is going to offend some of you on this call and plenty of people who are watching this recording on YouTube. How I would explain these concepts, law of assumption, law of attraction concepts, very simply, is how you think about yourself, how you react to things shapes your life. And there's many different ways we could talk about how that works, but at its core, it's how I treat myself and react to things shapes how my life is. How I feel inwardly depends the actions I take and what happens to me. So it's very worthwhile to feel better about yourself, and in turn to feel better about other people. And it's very worthwhile, in my opinion, to have a relaxed, loving, compassionate, self-compassionate, peaceful inner reflection of who you are. Self-concept, you could say. However, it's much harder to do that than people would care to admit usually. But that's the work. So I don't know if that's a good explanation, but that is one explanation. You can read some of my books or watch some of my videos or listen to some of my podcast episodes, and perhaps I explained it in totally a different way, but it's always the same, basically. Always comes back down to the same core idea, which is your reactions, how you feel and think. That's not just random. This is not a sterile universe. I don't like using that term, but how you react to things and like your reactions to things, how you think and feel is directly affecting every part of your life, including external stuff that's happening on the outside. Yeah. Yeah, Jordan. Do you have a question, Jordan? I think you're muted, Jordan. Your hand's down. Okay. If you want to talk, feel free to unmute. Otherwise, I will talk. Having sound difficulties. Yeah, no problem. Just raise your hand when when and if you can figure out the sound issue. This seems like, for those of you new here, it's funny when we do these group calls, what often happens is I talk and then everybody's shy. I'm the same way when I attend group calls and stuff. And then everybody is talking. At the beginning, no one's talking, and then everybody starts talking. So it's also fine. I also like the group call where no one talks, and we just there's very few comments too. So this is good. We can just sit here and chill here for a while longer, and that can be it as well. Yeah, James, I see you raising your hand. Do you have a question? I think you're muted.
Oh, Tim, you can hear me now?
Jordan, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Hold on,
So,
hold on one sec, James. We'll get to your question afterwards, James, if you want. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, Jordan.
hello everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. For me, like I've actually been using AI like consistently since last October, but I wasn't using it to discuss various manifest teachers until I came across you, Tim. And like I even created cause like I'm very interested in the various new thought teachers like Emily Coué, Joel Goldsmith, but I like they have so many different things. Like it's kind of hard to know which ones to use. So I put all them together, like all the different playlists you have on your YouTube channel. I asked for like specific goals I'm trying to manifest. I put them in and it provided like a very detailed, in-depth analysis and like it's something I've been following this past week, and it's really nice to have such a comprehensive that I probably wouldn't be able to make on my own from painstakingly reading them one at a time. So because they have the information already. Yeah, so yeah, definitely the AI thing is very useful to anyone who might be on the fence because there's so much stigma. Like people wonder like this new addition into the modern world of this, but I think if used correctly, it can be very helpful.
Thanks for sharing that, Jordan. Yeah. Um, I've just, again, you can't convince me otherwise. I've seen too much at this point. But what I would say, what makes it, there's so many ways to use AI. Personally, and this is understandably why a lot of people get uncomfortable. What I tell clients and what I do myself is I say, get as honest as you can with the AI. So in other words, like for me this morning, like I'm talking about something like I'm just like my approach towards something, right? I will take a picture from a Joel Goldsmith book, a page from it relevant to it, and I will have ChatGPT break it down. Now my ChatGPT already knows everything about me, basically my approach towards life, basically, whether it's my approach towards my family or my work or social situations, whatever. So I'm not just getting an objective explanation of Joel Goldsmith, which is very valuable in and of itself. I'm getting an incredibly relevant answer or insight about how this particular page of Joel Goldsmith is relevant to my life right now. And then if it says anything interesting, which it did and which it always does pretty much, I will then talk to it about that. And if it doesn't say something interesting or something wrong, I'll say, actually, I think you're totally wrong there. I actually see it like this, and it will usually correct itself or what have you. There's so many ways to play with it. And yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Jordan. In my experiences, there's just no way you could, if you're trying to learn about a teacher and you like the teacher, but you just don't feel like you have time, it's so much faster now because you can upload a PDF, for instance, to ChatGPT of like Emily Katie's work and say, I'm going through this today. What do you think is most relevant about what I'm going through in terms of what she says? Or is there any specific essays or paragraphs in certain essays that are, relevant exactly to what I'm talking about here? And AI will just do it in 25 seconds. That was not available even a couple of years ago. It's a total game changer. And it's, again, you just experiment with it, go at your own pace, get comfortable at your own pace. But in the very least, it's a great way to, find out about teachers quickly, like you're saying, Jordan, in the very least, because it's like people are like, get to know the best of Goldsmith or the most relevant of Goldsmith or Emily Katie or what have you. So yeah, just, I can't recommend it highly enough. So. Still said, just randomly thinking about the radical honesty of that one guy in a previous call who said something like he cannot comprehend what was going on, doesn't like it, and is going to leave. I don't know why that seems so funny to me. LOL. Yeah, still I remember that guy. I don't remember his name, but well, what I will say, if you're here and you don't know what's going on, don't like it, and feel like you might want to leave, you're probably in the right place. And it's fine not to know what's going on, because my whole thing is we don't need to know what's going on. We'll figure that out later. Just relax and get ready for the ride. What's Abraham Hicks has that great line I'm paraphrasing where it's like, if you jump out of an airplane and realize the parachute's not working, just enjoy the fall. It's there's no pressure here. Unfortunately / fortunately, you might not get the answers you want, but you will get something usually from attending a call like this, because it's open. We try to provide space, and then whatever happens. Yeah, but shout out to that guy. Thanks, Sil, for mentioning him. And thank you more for showing up tonight. Always nice to have you on these. James, do you have a question for? There you are.
I just wanted to make a couple comments, and
Sure.
a question could pop up. I don't know. I just wanted to thank you so much for everything you put out. It's been so helpful to me, and doing the silly stuff and the relaxing. I've read that material over and over, and it's just the most. It's the deepest, wisest instruction I've ever gotten. Was just relax. Just take. The way it comes up for me is just take my foot off the gas, and because, the way I get in my own way or create suffering for myself the most is I feel there's an urgency in the moment for me to understand something or know what to do. And a kind of like, I got to get this right in order to be okay. And so, you're what you're putting out has really been helpful, especially what you just said is like, we don't need to understand right now, or we don't need to know. I can't remember exactly what you said, but that was like perfect. And I'm starting to get that and live it. It's just like, I've kind of gotten to the place now where I realize that it's not, the answer is not so important as if I relax and take it easy and just come back in my body, I'm going to be smarter, and have access to higher understanding. And the other thing I wanted to thank you for was I would have never tried AI if you hadn't said it. I mean, anybody could have said it, but when I heard it from you, because you're so sensible, and so now, I don't know, I just like your clear message, and so I tried it, and I've been doing it for 2 months now, and it's just been wonderful, just absolutely wonderful. Um, because I can get like really elongated definitions of a single idea or a single word that like relax, or allow. That was when I was working on it with, I want to know how to allow, how do I allow more? And but you won't take up all the time, but I just want to say two more things. It's like I I wanted to make soup the other day, and I just told it what I had in the house in the refrigerator, and it gave me like 2 or 3 different recipes, depending upon how, did I get spicy or like this, and then the other thing that astounded me was I do a lot of artwork, and I can really make myself crazy over the artwork, overthinking it and criticizing it, and all that, getting serious, about it. And I asked it the other day. I said, "Can you see pictures?" And it said, "Yeah." So I sent it 4 or 5 screenshots of work I had done, and it gave me this amazing critique. Just this amazing critique. There was nothing to make me feel bad, but it didn't hold back. It just gave me. I was astonished, and it was like, I know people that are better artists than me, and they would have said that. They would have noticed that, and thank God they did. Or thank God. Anyway, um, yeah. Just thanks a lot for everything. I really, appreciate it all. Yeah,
Thank you, James.
yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot. Really does.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. That's so nice. Thank you. Yeah, that's why I do it. Is for kind of what you said, what you just shared. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm the same way. I mean, listen, yesterday, I forget what I was trying to think. What was it? There was something yesterday afternoon. I was like, I have to do this. Like that doesn't go away. At least doesn't go away for me. You know what I mean? I've been doing this stuff for like the stop being serious, playful, relaxed stuff. That's my real, talking about it for a long time. That's my whole thing. And still, it's like, I have to do this. I got to figure this thing out. It's still like, what? It's so interesting. It still comes. But the point is, like you're saying, it's like, oh, okay, it's still there. Can be there. Can be there. Doesn't mean I have to actually do anything. It's coming through. Still can relax. And was it that important? Obviously not. I don't even remember what it was. I was just there was that feeling yesterday afternoon. There was this thing. I was like, oh, I got to figure this out right now. And then I caught myself quickly. Well, relax. No, I don't have to figure out anything. When it needs to be figured out, it'll be figured out. I think it's very true too. When you do art stuff too, it's very, the art, what you said about art. Yeah. For me, I have an artistic sensibility, and I don't mean to be knocking the scientists in the room, but this stuff is art. Like this is an art. Neville said like the art of meditation, right? Like it's not a science so much as an art usually, I think, for a lot of us, the experience, the feeling of it, right? And that's why I like the law thing. And I got nothing wrong with calling things laws, whatever. It's not a law, but an experience for me a lot of the time. So yeah, thank you, James. Again, really, really appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Debbie. Yep, we'll see you later. See you. Can watch the recording. Appreciate you coming live. Jay asked, I would be curious to know your takes on Abdullah. This is a good question. Sometimes I found Neville, as you mentioned in a video, he was a dramatist. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Abdullah in a second. Still, I just want to read your thing. Honestly, so true. I've been experiencing recently, but I don't really care much about remembering. And then God reminds me more than I thought I needed to know. I used to be obsessed with remembering. Exactly. You realize you don't need to figure stuff out ahead of the time, a lot of the time. I'm not against planning and doing stuff. And like, you know, I'm a big boy. I've got a lot of stuff I have to do, and I want to have stuff figured out. But like, we get obsessed with figuring things out in a certain way, and that's usually not necessary, and actually often impractical, and not actually an ideal way to solve issues. Usually letting it come as it comes and figuring out as we go is a more effective way. So yeah, I agree with that. On to Abdullah. I've got thoughts. This could be a whole different call. I surprisingly have not taught, I do not talk about Abdullah that much. But, you know, honestly, like I said this in a recent video, I don't really read or study Neville that much anymore, guys. That's the truth. I talk about Neville a lot because he's the comically like become the big guy in the manifestation space online the last 5 years, even though people just talk about him in the craziest way imaginable. So I talk about Neville a lot in that context. But, you know, I was much more into Neville reading, studying him between like 2014 and like 2018. Abdullah is a huge figure, but also a very mysterious figure. And my friend Marvin is a big fan of Abdullah. And, you know, I sometimes do like high-end relationship coaching with Marvin. And we did a group last year together for a whole year. Marvin was revisiting Abdullah last year. And so I looked at, someone on this call knows this. What's that book? Walter Lannon, I think, the book that the guy wrote about, the Potter book that's about Abdullah. If anybody knows, they can type it in. Neville's not the only guy who was taught by Abdullah. There's other people in New York supposedly that were taught by Abdullah. Joseph Murphy was supposedly taught by Abdullah, but I think Walter Lannon or someone wrote about Abdullah, and it's like the Potter's thing or whatever. You can email me if you're confused about this. Anyway, I revisited some of Abdullah's stuff via that book last year. And this is the hot take. My hot take is Abdullah was not that good a teacher. He was a master at applying this stuff. And I think the reason I'm saying he was not that good a teacher is because I think it would be very different if there was more accurate on the ground accounts of him and how he worked with people. But based upon, especially that book, the Potter's book, someone's got to know that. So put that in the chat. But based on that book and the Neville stories, what we know about Abdullah and his teachings, yes, it was told to a certain Potter by Walter C. Lannon. Yes, I'm pretty sure that is it. Lanyon wrote one or two books about Abdullah and was definitely taught by him, at least, or not definitely, but apparently. Mitch Horowitz has some history about this because Abdullah is so mysterious. If you look at what Mitch Horowitz has written about Abdullah, I think it's it's somewhere. I was going to say One Simple Idea, which is a great Mitch Horowitz book. Anyway, based on what we have of Abdullah's teachings, it doesn't impress me that much. Now, I'm not saying he was not actually a great person to teach you if you were there with him. I'm saying if you read the books of his teachings, it's very body shaming. Like one thing that really stood out to me when I revisited it last year and I was talking to Marvin about it some was like, he's saying you basically got to make the body your slave and master the body, which sounds cool somewhat, but then you get more and more into the body work or have always been into somatic work like I have. and have just experienced failures and successes with stuff. And like, I just don't agree with that advice. Generally speaking, I don't think it works well for most people. Did it work for Abdullah? 100%. The guy lived to be at least 120, was eating ice cream and drinking. And, you know, Abdullah had mastered the body. And you could say he had made the body his servant or slave or whatever term you want. It worked for him. Did it work for Neville? Neville was an alcoholic. I mean, clinically speaking, I'm not saying, you know, I think he was a very functional alcoholic, but he drank a lot and he didn't, you know, he died at, you know, he didn't make it to 70. Does treating the body that way work for a lot of people? I don't know. I would say only for the minority of people it does. I guess my hot take is there's some crazy AI videos, by the way, about Abdullah recently on YouTube. Some of them are pretty good. Wait till I start making AI actual videos, guys. They're going to be the best ever if I'm not lazy enough to do them. Because like there's ones of like, you know, there's Abdullah, this very mysterious, like, you know, Ethiopian guy with a big beard walking through, and like, you know, the 2-chair method. All this stuff you're hearing about Abdullah is all just, it's just like garbled Neville lectures taken together. Like, it's just like Neville describing sats. I'm meandering here, but my hot take is and if someone sends me some interesting Abdullah stuff, I'll make a video about it. Okay. But the point is Abdullah is he's a myth. He's a myth. And he's more useful as a myth than as a teacher from what I've seen in terms of his teachings. Neville's a much better teacher if you're just reading or listening to the lectures. There's no lectures of Abdullah's. Yeah. So said maybe his teachings were so good that everyone wants to remember, which made them forget all the good stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's, again, there's no one. Abdullah had no quibbles. That's right. Abdullah is this guy, like, again, it's this character. It's like, what is that? That Ayn Rand book, is it The Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged? Who is John Galt, or whatever it is, right? It's that he's this myth. And, you know, Mitch Horowitz argued maybe it wasn't even a real maybe it was, you know, a combination of multiple people. Like, it's like anything you say about the guy sounds great, right? I mean, we are just saying, oh, he lived to be 120. Neville said, oh yeah, he was like 140. He wanted to go back to Africa, to Ethiopia or whatever to pass before he died. It's like, what? You're talking about a master practitioner, but was he a master teacher? Probably, but the way he's spoken about, we don't see that. Where's Wally? Where's Waldo? Where's Abdullah? Yeah, and I will say there's been a little bit more research done in recent years about Abdullah because of the fascination with Neville. Of course, there's going to be a fascination with Abdullah. From what I've seen, I've been very unimpressed. It's been more like Neville fanboys and fangirls like going back and being like, oh, we found where Abdullah was in 1922. Like, you know, what building in New York? I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, where's the teaching, right? What? Yeah, that's my hot take. Probably someone on this call, you don't have people. I don't consider myself an expert on Abdullah. Okay, so if people know more and want to disagree with me, that's completely fine. And they can, that goes for everybody I talk about. Any other questions? That was a good one about Abdullah. That book, Marvin has on his channel, and you can easily find the audiobook to that Lanyon book about it was told to a certain potter or whatever. All that stuff is on YouTube. You can listen to the audiobook version or find the book Kindle version or whatever. All right. Yeah, James.
Oh, good. I got it on. I would love to hear if you want to talk at all about Emil Coué.
Yeah.
I do that. I got your book on Every Day in Every Way. I'm getting
better and better.
Yeah, and the way you spun it with I can't remember the word right now. It's not coming to me. Uh, but I really like that, and I find myself doing it all the time, and I think it is helping my imagination. It's like and the direction somewhere I got from you was to do it loud enough to hear a little bit, or I don't know where I got
He
that,
said
but
that was actually him. He actually, which is interesting because a lot of great spiritual teachers will say you can say affirmations silently. Like when I'm in deep
right,
meditation, it almost seems weird to say it out loud. But Coué, who is working a lot with not people in deep meditation, right, but peasants and everyday people, he would say
right,
always make it so you can hear it, or so at least you move
yeah,
your lips, at least move your lips and whisper it in the very least, so you can have that physiological response and hear it. He said
yeah.
that was him. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I started doing it that way, and I think it's helping me see myself, without any effort at all. I just kind of see myself doing better, see myself being more at ease and more useful and things like that.
Great.
Uh,
That's
yeah, and
great.
so any insights on Emil is okay with me.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I'll
Would you talk?
shut up.
Well, no. You're saying great things. Um, yeah, we'll talk about Coué in a minute. I can always talk about Coué. He's my favorite. Elaine made a good point, and this is what Mitch Horowitz has kind of touched upon too. Uh, there's an idea that Abdullah might not have existed or was a culmination of multiple people. Right. I mean, there's that theory that Abdullah is not one person, but several kind of mystical teachers who were in the New York area in the 1920s. So, and you have to remember, Neville was immersed in that religious, deeply metaphysical, spiritual world before he ever discovered Abdullah. Okay. This is not some guy who was like just dancing and living a la-di-da life and one day discovered Abdullah and it changed. Like, no, his life was about this spiritual stuff before he found Abdullah. So that idea that it might have not been one guy is certainly possible. I personally think there was just one Abdullah, but again, what do I know? I like you calling it an approach, making it more creative. Yeah, I mean, you got to do it. Listen, if you like calling it a science, that's no problem. Or a law, if you like calling it a law, if that works for you, sure, absolutely. I've just been on Reddit too many times and moderated the Neville subreddit before to have people throwing "it's a law" around too many times for me to ever feel comfortable using that term seriously. It's Gene. I've just come across your work after Neville overload and have relaxed and now lost my years to manifest a particular outcome. Could you expand on changing your beliefs using your imagination? Yeah, I mean, the only way to change your beliefs is to use your imagination. This ties into what Coué said. I mean, that's what Neville was always getting at. You change your beliefs by changing your imagination. Beliefs are not changed through willpower, they're changed through imagination. So, I mean, this ties in with Coué. What I would say, Gene, is like, this ties in with Coué. So, and I made a video the other day. If you look closely or not that closely, you'll notice I've made probably 50 videos about just this. A lot of people in modern times, I see that comment, people liken Abdullah to Morpheus from the Matrix. Yeah, that's at this point, whatever. Absolutely, that's a good comparison. But you can get Abdullah is whoever you want him to be. He's the myth, the legend. These days, Neville's hot, which is perplexing to me as someone who tried to soberly look at his work in the mid 2000 teens and wrote about it and edited a bunch of his work. Shocking to me that he's so popular. But Neville, kind of like Abdullah, is this myth now in so many ways. And he's explained so poorly online most of the time. There's definitely some exceptions. But generally speaking, Neville's advice and approach is so garbled. But at its core, it's you your imagination is running your life. Change your life by changing your imagination. And what the majority of people, not necessarily on this call, but the majority of people probably watching the recording of this call, let alone the majority of people watching law of assumption videos, don't understand is Neville was very explicit in saying this, but he was not unique. There were many other New Thought and metaphysical teachers saying similar things, but none of them said it as clearly and with zero spiritual language as Emil Coué, or then Emil Coué. Emil Coué, in my not so humble opinion at this point, blows all the law of attraction and manifestation teachers of the last 100 years out of the water, that I know of at least, and I'm not pretending I know them all. This guy was a French pharmacist and then basically what today we would call a psychologist, and figured out how dominant the imagination was in one's recovery process, healing process, and living process in general, and figured out that willpower and effort are usually, unfortunately, working against the imagination. And that if you can get what you want to do, your willpower on board with your imagination, you will be able to do wonderful, incredible things, including heal yourself in a way that a lot of people would think is impossible, like heal yourself from being seemingly paralyzed, or people having tuberculosis being healed relatively quickly, things of that nature. And there are many, many things that make Coué impressive, but one of them is he explained all of this stuff about using your imagination to change your beliefs without any fancy dancy language. And he taught peasants and normal people how to use it and heal themselves by the thousands and thousands and thousands. And this is not some gimmicky marketing LOA. He healed thousands of people, that's a fact. And I laugh when people say how advanced we are knowing this stuff today, because if you go back and you read what Coué was doing, and you read books about Coué and the history of hypnosis and psychology and suggestion, like Suggestion and Autosuggestion by Charles Baudouin, and you get a sense of the amount of people Coué and his associates were working with each day, and the years, honestly decades, they did this for, you will probably think, my gosh, they knew more back then than we know now when it comes to this stuff. And one of Coué's mistakes is he thought that his ideas could be transferred without him. And he was wrong. When he died, that whole movement kind of died with it, a relatively fast death. But that is the most clear and amazing shit I've ever read about using your imagination to heal and help yourself and others that I've ever encountered. And the fact that people don't know about it and Neville is so big is hilarious in a dark humor, gallows humor type of way, because Coué is the guy. Coué hugely influenced everybody, and he hugely influenced Neville. And he's not as eloquent as Neville. No one was as eloquent as Neville the last 100 years. But man, was he more clear and more effective than Neville. And did he ever help a lot more people? Which is not to say Neville's bad at all. Neville's freaking great. But Neville is super dramatic in an effective way. He hypnotized people through his dramatic eloquence. And it can get confusing. Coué would say, I am hypnotizing you, but you're really hypnotizing yourself. All this self-healing is essentially just self-hypnosis. He would tell you that. And then he would proceed to get a person to believe that they could do it. So Coué's next level in my book. And I recommend studying him. and studying all the books written about him. I mentioned Suggestion and Autosuggestion. The Practice of Autosuggestion is another great book. Christianity and Autosuggestion is a book everybody should read who is interested in Neville and New Thought, because Christianity and Autosuggestion links up the sobriety of what Coué is talking about with basically the teachings of Jesus and all the New Thought stuff that Neville and people like Emmett Fox, H. Emily Cady, Catherine Ponder, Joseph Murphy are all talking about. It links that soberly. There's another book that I have to get my act together and republish, but you can find it in PDF form. I'll send it to you. If you can't find it, just contact me, called Coué for Children, which is not just about Coué working with children. It's about his associate, Marie Kaufmann, who came to him in 1913 and who successfully healed herself using Coué's ideas and became kind of Coué's right-hand woman. And she was a more effective healer than even Coué, especially with children. And that book, again, if you read it, the first 50 pages, it will just blow your mind. And no one's talking about it. So, yeah, I mean, I could talk about Coué, and I have spoken about Coué. I could talk for hours. You know, I've got over 100 videos on Coué and the people I'm talking about. You know, Kaufmann, Charles Baudouin, Cyrus Harry Brooks, the guy who wrote Christianity and Autosuggestion. They're just so sober, and it's like, it's just wild. Like, people don't even know. People don't know how much we knew 110 years ago about this stuff in terms of suggestion and hypnosis and the effects of it. So, did Coué write a book? Yeah, he wrote several. He wrote a couple books. I mean, and also, I don't know how much it was him and his associates writing them with him. My favorite book in this whole manifestation genre is Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion. Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion is a book everybody should read. I also have edited a book back in 2017 of some of Coué's best teachings. If you, again, contact me, I can send you a PDF of it. It's called Simple Self-Healing. You can also get it on Amazon. There's an audiobook version as well. One of the most powerful things I've heard recently is spiritual equals secular and sacred balanced. They are one and the same, no distinction. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, is that so many of these manifestation ideas have kind of spiritual tropes, and there's not enough practical secular balance. Coué balances that out really well. The monks must be tapping into what Coué was saying. They can do miraculous healings and raise their body temperature, etc. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, Coué was very upfront about all this. He said, people have always been doing what I'm talking about. He goes, I'm just making it very clear and kind of obvious for the masses. What I think he missed is how fantastic and charismatic he was at conveying the message. And because of that, like I said, when he passed, a lot of the message, unfortunately, kind of passed with him, which is really unfortunate. Is there any Coué writing you can recommend where he addresses the topic of personal success? I mean, indirectly, it's all about that. Even though he was, you know, healing people all day, he's talking about success in every avenue. But there are examples, like in Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion. He basically says, if you think you will be successful, and it's at all natural and reasonable, it will happen. He's got all these quotes in Self-Mastery Through Conscious Autosuggestion. There's all these short quotes of his, and it's like, they're like aphorisms. I mean, you can read them for years, like just go through, like, because they're very, very deep. And one of many of them are along those same lines, but it's basically like, if you think you are going to be successful, if you think you are going to do something, you will do it. Even if it seems impossible to everybody else and it doesn't seem like there's any way, you'll do it. The hard part is thinking that you're going to do it. You understand? That's the hard part. That's not just affirming in the morning. That is a imaginal mindset shift. It seems to me the state of the wish fulfilled is relaxation. Yeah, that's my opinion too. It seems to me the state of the wish fulfilled is relaxation, 100%. I wrote a book called Relax More, Try Less, talking about that, linking it with Neville's advice back in 2015. I also wrote a short pamphlet called The Relaxation Manifesto, saying exactly that. I don't know how to do these complicated techniques, at least with any sustainability, especially long-term. I've tried and had passing maybe success with sats or things like, isn't it wonderful affirmations when I first got into Neville, but nothing lasts. What lasts is that feeling of relaxation. If you can cultivate that more relaxed space within you, it helps. And this is very similar to like why some teachers I like Joe Goldsmith, they just say, just go to God. The only thing you can do is surrender, relax into God, which is right now. And then you do that, let the chips fall where they will in terms of a practice. Again, this doesn't mean don't take practical steps to improve your life, but it's just like you don't need a complicated technique if you can relax inwardly and feel rested and at peace and feel like things are going to be okay, that you're going to be successful, that you already are successful, that things are working out. Yeah, it seems like they're all pointing to it in non-duality. They mentioned the collapse, the contraction of the body. Yeah, I mean, non-duality speaks about this in much more accurate terms. I'm a non-dualist first on a spiritual, I guess you could say, level. I look at spirituality like if I'm looking for truth, I'm going to non-duality or Zen or that kind of mystical stuff. If I'm going for practical advice, that's when I'm going to this manifestation stuff. A habit of relaxation is the most reliable system. Absolutely. Or not absolutely, but I agree with you, Sil. I mean, we have a similar sentiment there. Or as they say, whether you think you will do it or not, you will be right. Exactly. That's a lot of these cliche, or not cliche, but, worn sayings are, people say them because they're right. Whether you think you will do it or not, you will be right. That's a great saying. Was Coué self-taught? Not at all. This is something else. This is something else people don't want to hear because it totally demythologizes teachers. Like Neville, was Neville self-taught? Of course not. Most of these famous teachers are obsessed with this stuff. Coué was first in his class, opened up a pharmacy, and then started visiting hypnotists when they came to his part of France in the 1870s or 1880s, got way, 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 way into it, and then was running a pharmacy. He went so far as to send away for like mail order courses on hypnotism from, I think, like that guy, Earl of Rochester or whatever, in New York in the 1890s. And he's running a pharmacy this whole time. So working directly with patients this whole time, noticing, oh, when I tell them this is going to work, it works better than when I don't tell them anything. Over not years, guys, decades. So he's studying with all these great hypnotists in France, sending away for stuff, running a pharmacy. So seeing direct results of working with patients. And it's like, yeah, like a lot of his famous experiments, I've done a video on this before about like when people can't you have, Coué would have people have their hands together like this and be like, I can't open them. I can't open them. I can't open them. I can't open them. They'd be like, try to open them, but think you can't open them. And they couldn't open them. Those kind of experiments, that was from the freaking mail order course he got from America. He was always learning. He was not self-taught. But he formed his own philosophy, and in my opinion, reached it to the pinnacle of what we've seen. But no, he learned from everybody over decades. So yeah, that's important. Coué was a pharmacist, Neville was a dancer. Yeah, I mean, that explains a lot about their presentation. Neville's presentation is wonderful, but it's very evocative, artistic, like a dancer, super dramatic. Coué's is like a pharmacist and a guy who was helping people and had to give them stuff and see if they would be cured every day. Non-duality speakers miss law of assumption, though. They dovetail, in my opinion. Yeah, exactly, Jay. A lot of my stuff is about that, the connection. 3 years ago, I used Neville's Isn't It Wonderful technique to deal with a very scary situation, a real existential threat. It works spectacularly. Absolutely. In no way am I saying that Neville's techniques do not work. They absolutely work. I'm just saying they do not work cut and dry the way people on YouTube say, where it's like, do this and you'll have your ex back in 3 days. It doesn't work like that. It's about when they work. I mean, Neville himself said this. I made a couple of videos about this. Neville said, my techniques are figurative. They are to give you the belief that it has happened or will happen. You could say if you're using more Coué practical psychology, but Neville would say like that it has already happened in the, inwardly. It's to give you that belief. Isn't it wonderful? Or similar techniques are freaking fantastic. Neville still has, in my opinion, probably the best techniques overall. That actually is one reason he's so popular. It's because his techniques are so awesome. This is the problem. They're not going to work for the majority of you most of the time. That's what nobody on YouTube wants to say, except for a few people, unfortunately. Does Coué mention or talk about thought transmission? No, not really. He does not, from what I know, at least. I mean, no, he doesn't. I'm not as familiar as his work is with Neville or Murphy. Yeah, most people are not. Murphy mentions Coué, by the way. I don't think Neville ever actually mentions Coué explicitly. Jackie, I really want to hypnotize myself. We're hypnotizing ourselves all the time, guys. The problem is doing it the way we want. Right, you're saying that after using Isn't It Wonderful and having success, I haven't had success with his ideas since then as much. They're hard, I find. Exactly. This is normal. You are not the exception. That is normal. People who have had success with Neville's ideas should feel gratified they've had some success, because most people don't have much of any success. My point is, even if you've had some success, it's very hard to sustainably do something like SATs and use that as your go-to and only use that. I mean, if it was as simple as just using SATs effectively to change your life, then you would hear more about, I was talking to someone the other day on the phone, and it's like Jimmy Fuller, that wonderful Jimmy Fuller story in Changing the Feeling of I and Sound Investments. This guy went from relative poverty to making a few $100,000 a year very quickly using Neville's techniques. But what the hell happened to him afterwards? I don't know. And that's the case with most of this stuff, guys. It doesn't, where are these people? Like, and can they, what happened, right? It's not as easy as just a technique. Neville was not just about a technique. He was about a change of being. If Neville's techniques don't work for most people most of the time, what makes them good? What makes them good, I would say, compared to a lot of techniques, is they're more interesting and evocative. They really, they honor the imagination. Like Neville would say, go all out, lie in bed, for instance, and really imagine you're there, really do it. And if you really, and not everybody can do this, but if it works for you, you really feel the relief of like, oh, it's happened. Like you feel it, right? It's very powerful. It makes you feel good right then. Even if nothing happens, it still makes you feel good. My friend Cecilia, who's got a YouTube channel and a podcast, she used to talk about revision that way, how and she had a lot of actual successful stories with revision, but she also would say, when you revise a scene in your mind, it just feels good to revise it. And like when I do like somatic work with people and they go back to their childhood and imagine being with like their parent and like their parents saying something different to them, we're not doing that to change their past reality. We're doing that because it feels better for them to have that experience. It makes them relate to themselves differently, relate to their self-concept differently. But Neville's techniques are not good if they don't work for you. If you haven't had much success, you're better off finding something that does work. And if you don't know what that is, we can hop on a short call to talk about it, a short consultation. Techniques are not the trick, guys. It's finding out what works for you. There's not a magic technique. Jay says, but it isn't about the technique, it's the power you're giving it, which is why people can simply decide. You can't simply decide. That's one of the biggest bypasses in the community. People cannot decide things. If I simply decide I want peace right now, or I want to be like Christ right now, is that simple? You can simply decide that? I've never seen anybody who can simply decide that. Neville talks about that too. Neville said, oh, he was at sea. He talks about this in 5 Lessons and elsewhere. In The Search, short book, he talks about it. He was at sea and he contemplated the highest state, that state of perfection where he could behold no iniquity, right? And he had this vision, because Neville would have visions or whatever. But then what happened? Did he hold it? No. You can't simply decide. If you could simply decide, we wouldn't be in this mess a lot of the time. We think we can simply decide. That's willpower. And the truth is, imagination is running the show, saying you haven't decided shit. If you actually do decide and you get your imagination on board, you're good. But that's tough. That's not willpower, that's imagination. That's the work. I don't know if that made any sense. It made sense to me. I had an experience a couple of years ago that proved to me that thought transmission is real. Yeah, I mean, I think thought transmission is real, by the way. I should add that there to the comment where about Coué talking about it. I mean, I've seen thought transmission is real, but I can't explain it. I can't make it a method per se. I can't be like, think this and your ex is going to call you. But like, for example, like when Marv and I were doing that group coaching, we had this happen multiple times, a lot. I still have this where it's like, but Marv and I, when we were doing a lot of relationship coaching where people were talking about their exes, it would be like, we would be talking about a situation they had with their ex. And then we would get an email the next day. Guess who called me after I hadn't talked to them in 3 months, right after our call? And it would be their ex. That stuff happens not all the time, but I see that a lot. And it's thought transmission is real. But I don't, labeling a thought transmission is silly. There's more going on than we understand. I think that's a fair way of describing it. Could you say you decide in imagination and that is where the decision is complete and keep going back to it? That's a conceptual question. I don't know. I don't do conceptual. I mean, I do conceptual. We're all conceptual, but like the whole thing, like, I want to go back to this. There's a reason I shared the KISS identity shit 2026. And that is, this is not really all that conceptual. Being radically honest with yourself when stuff comes up that you probably do not want to come up, like fear, shame, anger, sadness, vulnerability, is not conceptual. That's not that mental. Self-compassion is not that conceptual. Like being with a feeling that hurts is not that conceptual. We just have to do it or not do it. And then talking to AI is more conceptual, but we're using it more as an honest reflection tool. So it's not conceptual. We're talking to AI so we feel better, so we can understand why, like how we're feeling better and have it mirrored back to us. It's all experience. So there's a big difference, I guess, between conceptual learning, which is a lot of the law of assumption and law of attraction space, and experiential learning, which is actually doing it. And doing it is what's interesting. It's a lot harder, but it's also a lot more gratifying because it actually changes us. And so I don't think it's about, you can't mess up doing it as long as you do it. You just do your best and just do it. But then you stop thinking about concepts. You stop thinking about, can I grow 3 inches? Can I get that person to call me from without letting them know? You stop thinking about how great Abdullah was. You just don't. You're more concerned about like, well, this feels kind of tight here. Why is that? I don't know. What does this want? It's not saying anything. Okay, I can be with it still. Oh, it's moving some. Okay. It's telling me I'm okay as I am. Okay. See that's different. That's experiential. That's not conceptual. No problem, Gabe. Thanks for coming by. I can appreciate your work, Tim, particularly your affinity with Goldsmith and your emphasis on working with the body. Goldsmith doesn't seem to emphasize the body much directly in his language. I wonder if you could comment on any connections you see here between Goldsmith working the body. Uh-oh, Gabe. Man, you came in late with a heavy hitter. Great question. Great question. Yeah. We might have to email about this because it's deep. Yeah, I've touched on it. So Goldsmith, you're right. The short answer is you're right. And Goldsmith, you have to be careful because it can get too conceptual really quickly. So I like Goldsmith's advice for me is purely meditation, contemplative advice. And the somatic angle, I just integrate in with it because the other great somatic teachers and stuff I've been into for a long time. But shoot, I got to find it for you. Email me there's a video. It's in my seminar list. I think it's called Your Favorite Manifestation Teacher's Probably Gaslighting You or something like that. Email me if you can't find it. I talk about this. I think I did this in the summer, I think. I talk about how even someone like Goldsmith is subtly perhaps shaming you about your body. This is what Abdullah does, guys, by the way, except 10 times worse. And that you can complement it by looking at Gendlin or another somatic or IFS, something that's more forgiving of the body. So check out that video. It's going to be a much more complete answer than what I give here, but you're 100% right. Goldsmith does not emphasize the body. And you got to be careful. If you feel like he's shaming your body, you got to be careful and go back to the somatic stuff then. In Self-Mastery Through Conscious Thought, suggestion Coué says that we'll be successful if we believe that we will be successful, whereas contemporary affirmation work say you should put it in the present tense. Do you have any thoughts on this? Yeah, the present people don't know what they're talking about as much as Coué. None of them are as good as him. None of them come close. You can say, I made many videos on this over the years. I don't anymore that much because I'm sick of talking about affirmations, but you can say your affirmations however you want. It's what they evoke in you or invoke in you. Evoke in you. It's what they evoke in you. It can be past, present, whatever. Say it however you want. But if I'm looking for affirmation advice, I'm going to Coué. I'm not going to any of these people saying, oh, you got to say it this way. Whatever. You can say it anyway. Coué, he broke most of the rules. He said, if you say, you can say, I do not want that to happen. They say, never say, don't say you don't want it to happen because you're really saying you do want it to happen. Coué said, say, do not want it to happen all the time. Coué always said, going to happen, going to. He broke all the rules are bullshit in terms of most of that stuff. So, yeah, just say what feels right to you. Isn't saying you will be successful a decision? I don't know. Too conceptual. The problem is you say it once, you don't believe it. It's a decision, and you make a different decision 2 seconds later. You have to make it continuous. Really, I was actually talking to ChatGPT about this today. Really, affirmations and self-suggestion, it's like Neville has this great quote, to paraphrase it, in his lecture, Changing the Feeling of I. He goes, an affirmation really is a standing order, something you do continuously. That's how you change your state. It's what you're saying continuously. Coué is not great because he said, say something 20 times in the morning. He's great because he's like, what you're saying throughout the day to yourself is who you are and what you will become. So it's not like I'm a wonderful, loving person. You say that. Joseph Mercy talks about this too. You say that affirmation for 5 minutes, it feels good. 3 minutes later, you're late for work, you're pissed at yourself, you know, you get stuck in a traffic jam and you're cursing yourself. Are you that wonderful, loving person now? What are you affirming now? It's what you're affirming, saying throughout the day. What's your standing order? Yeah. I will say too, I think you get a lot more, you feel a lot more liberated when you do know some more of the teachers and a little bit more of the history, because you realize, like some of these comments we're talking about here, nobody knows anything, right? But there's some people who give you seemingly better guidance than others. But whenever you hear this stuff about laws or you have to do it this way or whatever, always be skeptical, including, of course, everything I'm saying. Because again, this is more of an art and a creative experiential experience for you than some kind of conceptual science thing. So that's always good to remember. Yeah, any other thoughts or closing insights? Good call tonight. Yeah, I'm glad we had this call. I should do an LOA panel. No, everybody's scared of me. That's not even a joke at this point. I've tried, believe me, I've tried to do all that stuff. People don't want to talk to me now. The truth is blinding, as they say. Yeah, thank you, everybody. I hope that this helped your 2026 get off to a good start. And like I said, back to the practical side of it, the stuff we were talking about, just try it for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Give yourself that carrot and then see where you're at. Don't try to change your life in 2026 by thinking about all of 2026, unless that feels good. For a lot of us, that feels overwhelming. Just work on the next month. And if you do that, I think you'll see some nice shifts begin to happen. All right, guys. Good seeing y'all. Thanks for being part of it. Yep. See you later. Bye.